Hey everyone, I'm Rather Incoherent, and today I'm going to be talking about my 5 favorite events in the game. In my previous asset video I forgot to specify, I'm not including signature cards in this, and I'm not including cards that I really like but I would only ever play in like one investigator either. And before I start, I have a couple of honorable mentions. I only played Sure Gamble once. It was the very first time I played a Schizo tool in the core set. 3 experience is too much for this card to cost, and 2 resources. Like, this is crazy overcosted. If it were printed today, I could easily see it still being 2 cost but be 1 or 2 experience, or still being 3 experience but costing nothing. It's just really undertuned. But what it does is so fun and so satisfying. And having this in your hand, much like having a Lucky in hand, feels great, and just like Lucky, it's super thematically appropriate. So I wanted to mention this card. I had one other honorable mention. It goes to Spectral Razor. Spectral Razor is not a favorite of mine because I find it boring. But holy shit, what it does is incredible. I'm a power gamer, I optimize things, and so what I do, I can't help it. And Spectral Razor just ticks all the boxes. It costs no experience, not that many resources, and attacks at huge numbers on basically every character. You deal 2 damage, you get to engage for free against aloof enemies or engaged enemies, and against most enemies you deal 3 damage. It's just such a good card. It's so efficient, so important to being a fighter in the Mystic class, and as any fighter with Mystic off-color, you love this card. But it doesn't really tick any boxes other than being an incredibly efficient card, so for me it just barely doesn't make my list. Coming over to my real number 5, it's Get Over Here. This is not an efficient card. If you're not playing Nathaniel Cho, you're probably not running this. And like I said, I don't want to include cards that you basically only run on one character, but Get Over Here is so much fun when you actually get to play it. You feel like a hero, like you end up stopping behind your team because you're one-on-oneing the boss while everyone else pushes ahead of the scenario without you, and that's fine, because even if your Clover does draw an enemy, you'll just rip it off of them from a location away and kill it anyway. It's so satisfying to play Get Over Here. One of the most fun things I've ever gotten to do was play Lair of Dagon with Get Over Here and handcuffs, and just handle the cultist. Normally your fighter's just getting run ragged, they can't keep up with all the cultists in that scenario, and Get Over Here in that scenario just makes it so easy. It's so much fun playing this card. You feel like a hero. Your teammates are constantly surprised when you tell them you have the problem handled when you're not even at the location and you're busy fighting the boss. There are very few cards that feel better than this to play. Now, moving on to number 4, we have Nothing Left to Lose. Nothing Left to Lose sucks because it's not in your deck the second time around. However, it's also just the strongest card in the game the first time through. Like, the dream is that you gain 5 resources and 5 cards, right? That's incredible. More likely than not, it's more like gain 2 to 4 resources and 2 to 4 cards. You're not ever getting both maxed, you're very rarely getting either maxed. But even gain 2 resources, draw 2 cards, that's like the low end of what you can expect out of this. That's still half of Stand Together 3, and you can expect to get much more than that. You should probably be getting close to 4 of one of them, and at least 2 of the other. This is one of the best cards in the deck during the setup phase. You vomit your hand out, spend all your money, slam this down, redraw a new opening hand with opening resources. This card is just incredible. The only reason this card isn't higher on the list is because so often it'll be deeply frustrating. You'll like draw this and hold it, and then you'll draw the second copy and an emergency cache, and then 2 skills. And you're like, well shit, what do I do? If it weren't for that level of frustration with the card, it would have ranked higher. My third favorite event is going to go over to Lucky level 3. Honestly, any version of Lucky would probably get this same spot, but level 3 is unique in that it provides a lot of team utility. I actually might like it less than level 2, because now I have to give it away to other people, and I don't like that. I don't want to hold this for someone else's Mythos phase, I want to use it greedily for myself, and so I actually kind of like level 2 a little bit more in that way, even though it's a much worse card for those same reasons. But Lucky is just super thematically appropriate. It's what Sure Gamble wanted to be. It's an incredibly fun and powerful card that allows you to retroactively change the events of the game, and events like that are very rare and sought after. This is no different. I think most people understand why I like Lucky so much, so let's just move on to number 2, Sweeping Kick. Nathaniel Cho is a character that plays like a ton of fight events that no one else wants. Sweeping Kick is the only fight event he runs that other people are looking at and actually buying, not just looking at, but they're really putting it in their decks. This card is so good. Guardians cannot trip people. Not a thing they do. Don't you tell me about Mark Harrigan tapping Sophie and using Daring to evade at 8. I don't want to hear it. Sweeping Kick just gives the ability to trip to a class that can't. And that's not that good most of the time, but it still deals 2 damage as well. So when you're fighting a tough boss or a mini boss or just something that you didn't have time to deal with properly, right? Sweeping Kick gives you so much efficiency. It lets you make the enemy a non-threat for a round. It works towards killing them. It only costs 1 resource and 1 experience. It's just such an efficient card. It occupies a similar space in my brain to Brand of Cthulhu level 1, but it does very different things, and it is a very, very good card, offering something to its class that they normally do not have access to. And now moving on to my favorite event in the game, it's Grievous Wounds. I was gonna try to talk about Grievous Wounds and make it sound like it was my favorite card in the game for a little while, but I realized it said non-elite and it's so bad I can't even pretend to troll. But it is a Guardian card in my number 1 slot. It's Stand Together level 3. This is like legitimately the best card in the game that no one buys. And like you all put it in your deck list. You're all like, oh, I'm gonna get it eventually. For some reason, this just doesn't show up in Guardian decks until like the last 2 scenarios ever. I'm the only person at my table who buys this super early. I'll like get my main weapon, and as soon as I have that, Stand Together 3. And my teammates are always like doing incredible when I'm playing Guardian. They're always like, man, the game's just easy, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, I gave you literally half of a starting hand. I gave you 2/5 of what you start the game with on turn 1. It's incredible. This is the best team support card in the entire game, and a big part of why is because it's just a card that actually helps you too. It's just wonderfully powerful, super efficient. The fact that more people, or at least at my table, that people don't buy this immediately more often is insane. Just get by with the machete for a little while. Postpone everything, get some Stand Together level 2s. You won't kill as good, but you won't have to kill as long because your teammates will finish the scenario a lot faster. This card is incredible, and I think it sort of fits in with the other stuff I'm playing, with like Sweeping Kick allowing you to solve other problems, Nothing Left to Lose helping you set up faster. I really enjoy cards that let you solve things that you otherwise can't solve. And Stand Together sort of does that, doesn't it? The game is going to end faster when you accelerate your teammates. Your teammates solve problems you don't, and they're getting to that quicker. Stand Together level 3 is just one of the best cards in the game. Level 0 is fine. It's better than Emergency Cash. And if you don't think that's the case, then you're just like super self-centered and you can't do math. 4 is bigger than 3. But Stand Together level 3 is so good. Maybe it wouldn't be at the top of my list if it weren't for the fact that my table just refuses to run it. I'm the only one at my table that buys this quickly. Stand Together level 3 is just one of the strongest proactive cards and one of the strongest team support cards. It's an accelerant. It just makes you do what you do better and faster, and it applies to your teammates as well. It's so good. It's the kind of card I want to build a deck where it's just 30 of these. When I was building my list of cards for this, like half of the cards that were originally in my consideration but didn't make it into the list were just good draw cards. Stand Together level 3 is the best draw card in the game. No Stone searches your whole deck, but only for 1 card, only for 1 person, and it costs more experience and more money. Cryptic Research is often cited as being a classic Broken Seeker card. Fast, draw 3 cards. It's insane. But it's 1 more experience than this. And it essentially draws the same amount of cards, right? If you wanted to get a 4th card, you would spend an action drawing to get there. So, Stand Together level 3, in my mind, is actually a better card than Cryptic Research. It's so strong. It gets so many cards and so many resources for your team. Like, think about how upset you would be if you saw a level 3 rogue card that said gain 4 resources, draw 4 cards. That's basically what this does. Anyways, I've been rather incoherent, and this has been my essay about how Stand Together level 3 is the best card in the world, and you should love it as much as I do. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe. All that stuff really does help the channel grow, and I'll see you in the next one.